Lightning split the sky, illuminating the silent house near midnight. The chill of the rain swept through the cracks of an old window, brushing across Damon Cross's bare back as he stood quietly in the hallway, heart pounding in his chest. Every sense stretched taut like a violin string about to snap. At the far end of the dim hallway, Layla Quinn was pressed against the wall, her long hair slightly disheveled, red lips trembling and wet, an oversized t-shirt failing to hide the soft curves beneath. Her eyes caught Damon's, a look full of challenge, mixed with anxiety and a desire she couldn't suppress. The rain drummed on the roof, merging with the quickened breaths of both. Tonight, only Damon and Layla were left in the house, every normal boundary blurred like the fog clinging to the glass outside. Damon moved closer, their warmth mingling, the distance between them measured only by their breath. His hand gently brushed her waist, feeling the unmistakable trembling beneath her soft skin. "We shouldn't," Layla whispered, but didn't move away. Her eyes seemed to invite, to beg him to take another step. Damon leaned down, his lips near her ear, his voice hoarse with restraint. "I know. But I can't stop anymore." And then, their lips found each other, and every boundary ever drawn between them melted away, lost in the storm outside, and in the tempest of emotion now unleashed between their bodies. In that moment, neither remembered family, nor rules, nor the notion of right or wrong. There was only breath, the thunder of heartbeats, the forbidden and a raw, haunting desire. Their shadows merged on the wall, flickering with each flash of lightning, a secret confession surrendered to the darkness of the night. The last flash of lightning faded outside the window, leaving only the sound of ragged breaths echoing between two bodies tangled together in the darkness of the stormy night. In that haze of desire, every rule of family, every moral code carved into memory, faded into meaninglessness. And as the breath between them stilled and the rain slowly eased, in a rare silence shared by two souls, memories of Damon Cross's first days in this house came rushing back. As vivid as if it had all happened just yesterday. Damon remembered perfectly the stifling sensation when the taxi stopped in front of the two-story house in the suburbs. Worn luggage, shoes still dusted from the road, everything pointed to a long journey and a return nobody had truly wished for. He hesitated at the door, catching sight of his stepmother, Vanessa Hale, her face radiant with the gentle warmth of a woman who'd seen much in life. Standing beside her was Layla Quinn, her 19-year-old daughter, long black hair and a slender build that shimmered with the vitality of youth. Damon's first impression of Layla was inescapable. She didn't greet him as people often do during family reunions, but merely glanced his way before turning away again, keeping her distance. That cold beauty, that proud detachment, only stirred in Damon a feeling that was equal parts curiosity, confusion, and a deep, unspoken pull toward her that he could not control. Those first days living together left Damon feeling like a stranger to everything. His father, Marcus Fallon, had chosen to move in with Vanessa after years of widowerhood. Marcus always tried to create a sense of intimacy, but beneath the surface of this newfound harmony, Damon could feel all the invisible cracks, especially between him and Layla. They lived in the same house but seemed like two parallel worlds, colliding only in fleeting, chilly, and cautious moments. On the very first morning, Damon woke early, not yet used to the sound of rock music coming from the next room. He pulled back the curtain and saw Layla in a thin white t-shirt and shorts, leaning against the second-floor balcony railing, her long hair caught by the morning breeze. In the golden sunlight, her skin glowed. Every line of her body was slim yet strong, like a young dancer. Damon stood silently, captivated, until Layla turned and caught his gaze through the glass, her eyes as cold as ice but glinting like fire. She turned away, leaving Damon with a chaotic heartbeat and a question echoing in his mind. Why is she so distant? Or does she simply want to keep her space from a stranger entering her life? In the days that followed, Damon struggled to adapt to new routines. Each morning, he would hear Layla in the kitchen, the sound of running water, the sizzle of a hot pan. Sometimes, she'd wear a tank top that showed off her pale shoulders, her hair tied up carelessly, eyes averted when Damon passed by. Yet every time he walked by, he could feel Layla's eyes tracing him from behind, even if only for the briefest second, just enough to send a jolt of electricity down his spine. One evening, Vanessa invited the whole family to dinner out on the porch. The warm light illuminated every face, every tiny expression. Marcus would tell stories and laugh. Vanessa would sometimes touch her husband's hand, as if to remind them all, "We are a new family now." Layla sat beside Damon, head slightly bowed, absent-mindedly spinning a silver ring on her finger. At times, her leg would touch Damon's under the table. At first, he drew back, thinking it was accidental, but after a few times, Damon began to realize those little touches might not be so random, or maybe he just wanted to believe that. During the quiet nights, Damon lay on his bed thinking about Layla more than he should have. He recalled seeing her in the hallway, hair damp, wrapped in a thin white towel that revealed her slender calves and narrow waist. Sometimes, he would quietly pass by her room and hear slow music mixed with a soft laugh, a muffled singing voice. In those moments, he imagined Layla sprawled across her bed, hair messy, eyes dreamy, lost in thoughts far away and private and secret. But the more Damon tried to keep his distance, the more he found himself drawn to Layla. The forbidden feeling gnawed at every breath, especially during those unexpected moments when they'd collide in the most private corners of the house. One midday, as Damon was washing his hands in the bathroom, the door suddenly swung open. Layla entered, wearing nothing but a small towel, her skin still pink from a hot shower. She froze for half a second, their eyes met, then she acted as if nothing happened, quietly closing the door behind her. In that instant, Damon saw water droplets sliding down her shoulder, tracing her spine, the gentle scent of her body wash lingering, making his head spin. That image haunted Damon the rest of the afternoon. He realized that each time he encountered Layla, the air would tighten between them like a taut string about to snap, as if they were both playing a dangerous game that neither dared to name. One night, Damon woke to faint noises from Layla's room. The music faded, replaced by long, drawn-out sighs, the occasional shifting on her bed, the sound of fabric brushing against skin. In the darkness, Damon closed his eyes, imagining Layla on the other side of the wall, tossing and turning, just as lonely, just as pulled by strange emotions that nobody else could name. The next morning, life returned to its usual pace. But all it took was a single glance, a quick look at each other on the stairs, or an accidental brush of hands as they both reached for something dropped under the kitchen table, for the nameless fever between them to flare up again, waiting for a spark to ignite it. Some days, Vanessa went on business trips, and Marcus worked late into the night, leaving just Damon and Layla in the house. The silence was so intense Damon could hear his own heartbeat as Layla came down the stairs, wearing a thin sweater and tight shorts, bare feet on the cold wooden floor. She didn't say a word, just glanced at him briefly and walked by, her hair trailing the scent of shampoo in the air. Damon had no idea what to do with himself except bite his lip and watch her go, wanting to rush over and hold Layla tight, but terrified of destroying the last fragile boundary between them. Life together passed like this, each day adding another small crack to the family mask. Layla grew less cold, occasionally offering Damon a soft smile or asking him about college, about his travels, about old memories. But after each moment of intimacy, they'd both retreat to a safe distance, as if just one small move, one moment of weakness, and everything would spiral beyond saving. One day, while cleaning out the garage, Damon found an old family photo box. Layla stood beside him, flipping through the pictures. There was one of her as a little girl, pigtails, smiling wide beside her mother. Another showed Damon's father holding him as a boy, sunlight slicing through the trees behind. Looking at those memories, a vague sadness crept in, pulling the two of them closer together, though neither dared say a word. At night, when everyone else was asleep, Damon sat alone on the veranda, the moonlight smudged across the old tiles. Layla quietly joined him, sitting in silence for a long time before speaking. "Do you miss your mother?" Damon nodded. "Of course, but it's been so long. Sometimes I worry I no longer know where home really is. Layla turned to him, her gaze softening, lips curling into a sad little smile. Me too. Sometimes I still feel like an outsider in this house. In that moment, the space between them almost vanished. All that remained was a shared loneliness, emotions no one else could understand, and an invisible pull drawing them together. Damon looked at Layla, catching the glint of moonlight in her eyes. He wanted to reach out to pull her close to ask if she felt the same, but he held back, scared that if he let himself slip, there would be no turning back. But Damon knew, sooner or later that day would come. The day when those glances, those furtive touches, those sleepless nights tormented by the sounds from the next room would become real actions. He just didn't know when or what the consequences would be. In the dark, Damon closed his eyes and wondered, if one day we cross the line, what will we become to each other? Outside, music played again from Layla's room, sneaking through the door crack, piercing Damon's heart. A reminder that forbidden isn't something that reason can smother, but an underground fire always waiting to erupt between two people sharing a roof, just needing the smallest reason to become a storm. The summer days passed, and the house of Marcus Fallen and Vanessa Hale always seemed to be filled with sunlight and laughter. But for Damon Cross, every corner of that house was like an invisible wall separating him from Layla Quinn, a barrier no one else could see, one that only those involved could truly feel the weight of. Every morning, Damon reminded himself to keep his distance, to remember his place, the family titles, all the things he was not supposed to even think about. Yet, the very act of trying to forget made him more obsessed with every movement, every sound, every breath of Layla. The stepsister the world saw as his own blood, yet who felt so distant he couldn't reach her. Family life seemed normal enough. Dinners for four, Marcus laughing as he retold old stories, Vanessa's gentle care in every plate she served, Layla quietly tapping her spoon on the rim of her glass, occasionally casting Damon a glance through her messy bangs. But whenever their eyes met, there was a strange silence, as if the world faded away, leaving just the two of them and all their secrets revealed in one long, loaded stare. One early morning, Damon stepped out to the balcony for a smoke and stumbled upon Layla hanging up her lingerie. A black lace bra dangled from the line, red panties vivid against the gold sunlight, and Damon felt as if he'd been shoved into a forbidden world, where every line of Layla's body became an illusion haunting him each night. Layla caught his gaze, but instead of blushing, she simply smirked, took down the bra, and sauntered past him, her perfume trailing behind, a silent invitation. From that day on, Damon found himself noticing every tiny trace Layla left around the house. In the bathroom, her towel still damp, carrying a faint, feminine scent. At the sink, a pink lipstick among the toothbrushes. On the living room sofa, a thin sweater she always left draped across the back, its soft fabric retaining the sweet, fresh scent of her body, so much so that Damon had to fight the urge to lift it to his face every time he passed. Sometimes, Layla would lie sprawled on the couch watching TV, her head thrown back, her collar dropping to reveal a bra mark on her shoulder. Damon tried not to look, but his eyes always wandered back to that smooth shoulder. Layla seemed to sense it. Occasionally, she'd tilt a little, letting the collar slip lower, her eyes fixed on the screen, lips curled as if sharing a private joke with herself. The accidental touches began to multiply. One evening, Marcus and Vanessa went out to dinner with friends, leaving the two at home. Layla cooked noodles and Damon helped with the dishes. Layla's fingers got smeared with tomato sauce. She held out her hand to Damon. "Give me a napkin." Damon reached to wipe her hand, his fingers brushing her palm. That touch, warm and electric, rushed straight to his brain, and for a moment they stood in silence, the only sound the drip of water into the sink. Layla didn't pull away. Instead, her fingers curled briefly around his, a moment so brief he might have imagined it, before she took the napkin, wiped her lips, her eyes flashing with a hint of stubborn fire. That night, Damon sat on his bed, mind spinning with the image of Layla's lips, the curve of her smile, the look in her eyes daring him to break the rules. He tried to sleep early, but was woken by the sound of water running in the bathroom. Damon stepped out to see the door ajar, steam fogging the glass. Through that blurry glass, Layla's silhouette appeared, bare back, wet hair, arms lifted to twist her hair. Damon was about to leave when Layla turned, as if she knew someone was watching. Their eyes met through the fog. She stood still, letting Damon's gaze roam down her body, then slowly draped a towel over herself, smirking ever so slightly. Damon flushed red, hurried back to his room, heart pounding as if it might explode. After that night, every time Damon entered the bathroom, the scent of jasmine body wash lingered, clinging to the towel. Once, he even found a small note written in lipstick, "Don't peek." Damon laughed, though it was a nervous, guilty laugh. The next day, Layla passed by his room in a loose sundress, hair draping half her face. As Damon stepped out, Layla paused, bent to pick up a dropped necklace, her dress stretching to show off long, pale legs and flawless skin. Damon froze, uncertain whether to look away or keep staring. Layla glanced up, caught his eye, lips curling into a sly half-smile. What, never seen a girl pick something up before? Damon, flustered, turned away, face burning. Layla brushed past him, shoulder grazing his chest. Her scent, a blend of shampoo and skin, lingering for hours, leaving him unable to focus on anything else all morning. In the days that followed, those accidental brushes only increased. Once, Layla left her jacket on the living room chair. Damon picked it up, his fingers running along the soft collar, imagining the delicate skin underneath. Sometimes, watching TV with the family, Layla would sit closer than usual, bare legs lightly grazing his under a thin blanket, acting as if she didn't notice, continuing to chat with her mother. Damon could feel every tendon in her leg, the heat of her skin radiating through the fabric, each brush like a razor edge cutting into his resolve. One evening, Vanessa left to visit her mother in the countryside, Marcus busy with online meetings late into the night. Layla and Damon were left alone. Layla suggested they cook together, but it became more of a game, full of teasing and laughter. In the kitchen, Layla deliberately spilled flour on Damon's shirt, giggling as he tried to brush it off, making the powder stick even more. Layla rose on tiptoe, wiped his chest with a wet towel, her fingers gliding slowly, her eyes never leaving his. Damon stood still, feeling his body temperature soar. Layla's hand slid along his sternum, fingers brushing the heated skin beneath his shirt, stopping at the collar to tug gently, testing his limits. Damon clenched his fist to hold back, only watching her, their eyes speaking all the forbidden words neither dared say aloud. No one made a sound, just the soft breaths, the heat of Layla's hand, the warm glow of kitchen light stretching over their skin like a thin veil hiding secrets. Then suddenly, Marcus walked in, calling out from the front door. Layla jumped, pulled her hand away, and hurried off, cheeks flushed but lips still curled in a mischievous smile. Damon watched her dash up the stairs, heart pounding, his body still trembling from the pleasure left unfulfilled. After that, it was as if they spoke a secret language, every glance, every movement, heavy with unspoken meaning. Sometimes, Layla would emerge from the bathroom wrapped in a small towel, wet hair spilling down her shoulders, water droplets tracing her collarbone down to her chest. Damon tried not to stare, but his eyes betrayed him, following every curve of her body. She'd smile as if she didn't notice, but then bend a little lower to pick something up, the towel barely covering her. Other times, after a shower, Layla would lounge on the sofa in an oversized shirt, buttons half undone, legs propped up, scrolling through her phone. Passing by, Damon would catch a glimpse of black lace panties peeking out from under the shirt, his breath catching in his throat. Layla would look up, eyes half daring, half inviting. "Forgot to close my door, can you get my hair dryer for me?" Late at night, Damon was often awakened by the muffled sounds coming from Layla's room, long sighs, the creak of the bed, the occasional soft moan barely stifled. He would lie still, hands clutching the sheets, mind spinning with images of Layla in the darkness, biting her lip, her fingers wandering her own body, skin burning with desire. Some nights, Damon couldn't take it anymore and stepped into the hallway. Through the crack of Layla's barely open door, he saw the faint glow of her lamp, Layla lying on her side, one leg bent, hair spilling across her face, lips parted, eyes half closed, fist gripping the sheet beneath her chest. That image burned itself into Damon's mind, leaving a mark he knew would never fade. It grew harder and harder to distinguish accident from intention. They both knew the boundary they shouldn't cross, but neither wanted to stop the dangerous game. Layla always left traces everywhere. Lipstick at the sink, underwear on the line, scent lingering on the sofa, eyes locking with his at every encounter. Damon grew bolder, lingering longer when Layla emerged from the bathroom, letting his gaze roam openly down her skin. Once, Layla came into his room to borrow a book, wearing a sheer nightgown, her bare back glowing white, hair spilling loosely over her chest. She stood close, flipping through the pages, whispering, "Do you think I'd like this one?" Damon barely heard her, heart thumping in his ears. When Layla turned to go, she paused at the door, looked back for a long moment, and left him with a breathy, barely audible, "Don't make me wait too long." From then on, every wall between them became just for show. Damon knew he was caught in the forbidden game, and Layla, the alluring, rebellious, reckless stepsister aching to be loved, was the slow-burning flame ready to explode the moment a light breeze passed by. As for what lay ahead, Damon had no idea. He only knew those invisible barriers grew thinner every day. All it would take was a single touch, a lingering look, or a night alone in the house, and everything would shatter beyond anyone's control. That summer night seemed endless, blanketing the fallen house with a sticky haze of secrets and long-repressed desire. Each member of the family had their own rhythm, but for Damon Cross, every sense felt hijacked by Layla Quinn from the moment the invisible barrier between them first began to crack. Tonight, the house was eerily quiet. Stepfather Marcus worked late in the living room, stepmother Vanessa talked endlessly on the balcony, and Damon lay restless in bed, heart pounding, as if it might tear through his chest. Only a thin wall separated them, Layla's room glowing faintly from a nightlight, the door barely ajar, spilling a sickly blue glow into the hall. Damon could hear the soft jazz playing, each low note caressing his skin. But beneath the music, another sound wormed its way to his ear. Layla's gentle moans, fragile, trembling, broken as if trying to be stifled, but so real, so instinctive. Damon's mind spun. He sat bolt upright, pulse racing, helpless against the fever burning in his veins. Each time Layla shifted, the faint creak of her mattress carried through the wall, an unspoken summons only someone with experience could understand. He closed his eyes, picturing her red lips, long thighs, smooth skin, and their ragged breaths tangling in the darkness. Damon's hands clenched the bedsheet, desire flooding his chest and washing away all forbidden thoughts. He listened as Layla's sounds shifted from slow to hurried, merging with the music into a haunting, provocative melody. In the darkness, he couldn't fight it anymore, letting his imagination carry him away, convinced he could feel every movement Layla made on the other side of the wall. The moans grew more muffled, then came a long sigh, then silence. Damon lay still, his palms hot, heart refusing to slow. In his mind, he saw only Layla, her half-lidded eyes, rising chest, fingers tracing her body, all of her trembling with forbidden pleasure. The next morning, family life resumed its calm facade. Vanessa prepared breakfast, Marcus read the paper, and Layla sat at the table, hair tousled, wearing Damon's oversized t-shirt, the one she'd borrowed for swimming. The sight struck Damon like lightning all over again. Her body half revealed beneath thin fabric, long bare legs crossed, her fingers idly circling the rim of a glass, eyes lingering on him, lips pressed together around a secret smile. Damon dared not look too long, afraid his stepmother or stepfather would sense something wrong. But Layla never looked away. In fact, she sought his gaze whenever their parents turned away, her eyes charged with purpose, silently telling him, "I know everything you heard last night, and I don't regret a thing." That day, Damon drifted around like a ghost. He tried to avoid Layla, hiding in his room with a book, but the more he ran, the more he was sucked into the whirlpool of longing. Layla seemed to be everywhere, timing her presence and proximity to provoke him. Sometimes gliding past him in the hall, brushing his shoulder, sometimes touching his foot under the table, or finding an excuse to sit close, her breath hot against his ear, making Damon shudder. That night, Layla invited Damon to the porch to watch the moon. She brought a bottle of red wine and 2 glasses, telling their parents she wanted to talk about college with her brother. But once outside, she said nothing of school. She nestled close beside Damon on the wooden bench, legs slung across his lap, glass in hand, gaze lost in the distance. "I can't sleep. Will you read to me?" Layla's voice was drowsy but full of suggestion. Damon's hand found her thigh and he didn't dare withdraw. Layla tipped her head, hair brushing Damon's neck, her familiar scent wrapping him up, pulling him deeper into the forbidden haze. They sat in silence for a long time, neither saying a word too bold, but every shift, every breath, a secret flirtation. Later, when the house was quiet, Layla left her door ajar, the glow of her lamp spilling into the hall, a signal just for Damon. He paused at her doorway, seeing her lying on her side, thin nightgown clinging to her body. She looked at him, lips pressed, eyes sparkling with challenge. "Coming in?" Layla whispered, but Damon only stood frozen, swallowing hard, then silently returned to his own room, senses tormented by the sounds, images, and haunting ache of forbidden love he could never extinguish. In the nights that followed, the eavesdropping game only escalated. Layla no longer hid her desire, her nightly moans became louder, more deliberate. Damon stopped trying to block it out. He drowned in fantasies of Layla, her hands, her skin, every part of her turning into an addictive drug. One Sunday morning, with the parents still asleep, Damon passed by Layla's room and saw the door ajar, feminine perfume and soft music drifting out. Layla sat before her mirror in Damon's white dress shirt, unbuttoned at the top, her bare skin glowing. She caught Damon's eye in the glass, lashes fluttering. "Will you get my bag for me?" Damon approached, trying to keep his eyes respectable. But Layla pulled him closer and whispered, "Did you sleep well last night?" Damon went rigid, throat dry, and only managed to shake his head. Layla smiled softly and whispered, "Me neither. No one sleeps well when they keep hearing forbidden things in the dark, right?" In that moment, the space between them nearly disappeared. Just one more small excuse, and nothing could stop what was coming. That afternoon, Layla went out for hours, leaving Damon a single text. "Don't try to sleep early tonight. I want to hear you on my side of the wall." Damon stared at the message, heart beating faster with every word, realizing they had stepped fully into a dangerous game, where forbidden love was no longer a vague idea, but a tangible, undeniable need that neither of them could control. Each night after, the whispers, moans, breaths, and messages through the wall grew more intense. They were like 2 addicts, secretly sharing a dose of poison, afraid of being discovered, unable to stop, pushing each other closer and closer to the edge of every physical and emotional limit. And then, after one night of pounding rain, all the doors would remain unlocked. They only needed the tiniest excuse, one moment of weakness, and forbidden would become reality, echoing across every inch of skin, every gasp, every silent touch in the darkness. That weekend, the fallen house fell into an unusual silence. Marcus had to travel for work for 2 days, and Vanessa rushed back to her hometown when Layla's grandmother fell ill, leaving the big, empty house to the 2 children who were not children anymore. On Saturday morning, the air felt thick, so quiet that just breathing was enough to hear the others' presence. Damon woke early, his chest pounding with a wild animal's anticipation, restless, excited for every minute he would face Layla alone, for the first time with no grown-ups to stand between them. Layla appeared in the kitchen looking far more relaxed than usual. She wore Damon's white shirt, buttons undone, the hem hanging over her thighs with nothing underneath. Her hair was still damp, water droplets trailing down her neck, her skin glowing in the early light. Damon stood frozen, eyes locked on her bare shoulders and legs. She arched an eyebrow, lips curving into a sly smile, part invitation, part triumph. "Up early, big brother." Layla teased, her voice husky from sleep, then bent to tie her shoes, the shirt falling open to reveal almost all of her slender back. Damon swallowed, unable to hide his fluster. He opened the fridge to grab water, hands trembling, his eyes unable to look away from Layla for even a second. Breakfast was quiet, only the clink of spoons and their tense, shared breaths. Sometimes, Layla slid her hand onto Damon's thigh under the table, moving gently, her palm hot against his skin. Damon held his breath, body set ablaze by reflex. Then Layla would pull her hand away, as if just testing to see how much he could stand. After breakfast, Layla asked Damon to help her clean the house. As they wiped the kitchen counter together, Layla pressed her back against Damon's chest, her long hair almost covering his face. Her breath washed over his skin, her warm, smooth body brushing against his each time she moved. Damon tightened his grip on her waist, unable to resist the longing he'd buried for so long. Layla didn't resist, standing still, then unexpectedly pressed his hand more firmly to her side, glancing over her shoulder, her lips parting in invitation. But just as suddenly, she slipped away, picking up the towel and heading to another room, leaving Damon dazed in a thirst that wouldn't go away. Near noon, Layla turned on loud music and danced freely in the living room. She spun across the wooden floor, the shirt riding higher with each movement, showing off her pale thighs and a flash of black lace underwear. Damon sat on the couch, unable to tear his eyes from her. A few times, Layla deliberately danced closer, wrapping her arms around his neck, her scent overwhelming him, making him want to lose control. Layla giggled, leaning her head against his shoulder, lips brushing his ear as she whispered, "Aren't you afraid your stepmom will come back suddenly?" Damon tightened his hold on her waist and whispered back, "If she did, I still wouldn't be able to stop looking at you." All afternoon, they were nearly inseparable. Washing dishes, Layla let water splash on her shirt, the wet fabric clinging to her body, her chest showing faintly beneath. Damon couldn't take it anymore, slipping his arms around her from behind, chin resting on her shoulder. His breath seared her ear, his hand sliding along the hem of her shirt, slowly tracing the bare skin of her side. Layla's breath caught, her body trembling, but she didn't pull away. They stood locked together, breaths mingling, Damon's palm glued to her soft waist. Suddenly, Layla turned to face him, tugging his collar down, eyes locked to his, lips trembling. "I want," Layla whispered, but stopped, both of them frozen, knowing that one more second and every barrier would collapse. Then the phone rang, shattering the moment. Vanessa called to check in. Layla answered in a bright, innocent voice, laughing as if nothing had happened, leaving Damon both frustrated and admiring her perfect act. That evening, it rained softly. Layla walked out of the bathroom with only a towel wrapped around her, wet hair dripping down her back. Damon waited at the door, unable to hold back any longer. He pulled Layla close, his hand gliding down her bare back, fingers tracing her slim waist, pulling her against his chest. Layla shivered, her eyes drowning in sinful desire. Damon's hand slid down behind her thigh, lifting her onto the edge of the sink, their bodies pressing together as rain hammered against the window. Layla clung to Damon's shoulders, her lips grazing his neck, breath coming in quick, desperate gasps. Damon's hand slipped under her towel, fingers blazing a trail along her thigh, touching Layla's most sensitive skin for the first time. She moaned softly, her whole body shuddering, arms locked around his neck. The rain drowned out their moans, their secret movements in the small bathroom becoming a private ritual for just the two of them. But then the phone rang again, Marcus, calling to say he'd be home early tomorrow. Damon and Layla quickly pulled apart, Layla rewrapping her towel, face flushed, eyes sparkling with fear and excitement. Damon pulled her close, whispering into her ear, "Next time I won't stop." That night, Layla knocked on Damon's door, standing silent in the darkness, wearing only a thin nightgown, chest heaving beneath the fabric, eyes full of longing. They didn't need words. One look was enough to say everything had moved beyond secret touches. They lay side by side on the bed, Damon's hands trailing over Layla's skin, her lips trembling under his fingers. But even then, they stopped short of the final line, bodies trembling in pent-up desire, waiting for the night forbidden would finally erupt. In the days that followed, the air in the house was charged with invisible electricity. The slightest touch could spark a wildfire. Layla and Damon found any excuse to be close, watching movies, cooking, cleaning, each touch a new test of their self-control. They stole kisses in the kitchen, caressed each other on the sofa, leaving faint traces of lipstick on shirts and necks, marks only they would ever recognize. Once, Layla left a bright red stain on Damon's collar, smirking as she watched him scrub at it with soap, the scent of her perfume lingering, impossible to hide. Forbidden was no longer a wall, but a sweet, tangled rope. The more they struggled, the more trapped and inseparable they became. There was just one last night left before every stolen touch would burst into real flame. And when the rain fell again on the roof, Damon and Layla knew nothing in the past could hold them back anymore. That night, the sky was heavy and gray, wind beating hard against the window panes, thunder rumbling somewhere at the end of the street. With only the two of them left in the house, the air thickened into an unnamed craving, threading through every wall, every breath. Since the afternoon, Damon Cross had been unable to focus on anything except Layla Quinn. Every movement, every word, every shared glance seemed to carry a secret message. "Tonight is the last night, I'll wait for you to stop." Layla sat curled on the sofa in nothing but a thin silk nightgown, her skin glowing white in the dark. Her hair was slightly tousled, her gaze drifting out at the rainy window. But deep in her eyes, Damon saw only his own reflection, hungry, reckless, and undeniably helpless. He stood by the armrest, bracing himself, trying to calm down, but his body trembled every time Layla shifted. "I'm cold," Layla whispered, her voice so soft Damon had to lean in to hear her. He sat beside her, draping a thin blanket over their shoulders, whether by accident or intent tightening his arm around her and pulling her close. Layla's skin was cool, her breathing quick and shallow, matching the rhythm of the rain on the roof. No words were needed. The space between them was measured only in breaths. A loud clap of thunder lit up Layla's face for a split second, her lips parted, eyes shining, waiting. Damon couldn't hold back anymore. He bent down, his lips brushing her cheek, then trailing along her neck, feeling her heart pounding madly beneath soft skin. Layla arched toward him, arms locked around his neck, gripping his shoulders as if afraid some wild wind would tear Damon from her forever. Damon's trembling hands traced the curve of Layla's back, fingers slipping beneath the thin fabric for the first time, gliding over heated skin. Layla gasped, lips quivering with pleasure and fear. She pulled his head to her chest, his hands moving from her back to her waist, then exploring further, discovering Layla's body for the first time with no barriers between them. He lifted her up, carrying her step by shaking step toward his room. The room was pitch black except for a faint golden lamp casting their shadows long across the wall. Layla looked up at Damon, eyes filled with desire and a guilty torment, but she did not hesitate. She pulled him down onto the bed, mouth finding his, breaths melding into a language that could no longer be hidden. There was the soft rip of fabric as Damon pulled the nightgown from Layla's body, every inch of exposed skin a forbidden territory he'd only dared to dream of. Layla trembled, clutching at his back, her nails leaving pale red marks on his skin. In that moment, every idea of family, of right and wrong, evaporated, leaving only the feeling of being truly themselves, free, wild, and finally sated after so long. "Are you sure?" Layla whispered, lips brushing Damon's neck, her breath trembling with both plea and command. Damon gripped her tightly, answering with a deep kiss that poured out every regret, every restraint from all their months of living under one roof without ever being allowed to touch. They lost themselves in each other amidst the rain, the thunder, and the soft moans echoing in the darkness. Damon's hands wandered everywhere, her soft shoulders, the delicate swell of her chest, the curve of her waist, the long thighs trembling with pleasure. Layla no longer held back. She pulled Damon in deeper, their bodies merging, every rule that once bound them breaking all at once. The forbidden feeling did not fade, it only made every movement, every sensation more intense, sharper than ever. Damon realized he was doing what no one else would dare, possessing Layla, surrendering himself to a bottomless abyss with no escape, but he didn't want to stop. Layla didn't either, moaning softly every time Damon gripped her, lips never leaving his, her fingers tracing his spine, her legs wound tight around his hips as if she could never let go. Every last boundary shattered. They belonged to each other now, naked, secret, sinful but powerless to resist. Moans mixed with the rain, blending into the night in a symphony only they could hear. Layla sobbed in pleasure, Damon kissing her shoulder, whispering apologies and confessions of love all at once, admitting to himself that there was no going back. After the high faded, they clung to each other in the darkness, the whole room steeped in the scent of skin and the haunting reality that their forbidden love had become real. Damon buried his face in Layla's hair, feeling her shudder in his arms, hearing both their hearts pounding together, wild, guilty, but perfectly satisfied. No words were spoken, but in Layla's gaze were both tears and a smile. Damon held her close, realizing that from this moment, they would never again be the siblings they were yesterday. The fire of forbidden love had truly consumed them, leaving a scar that would never heal. Outside, the rain continued, washing away all traces from the earth. But inside that room, the marks they left, a red lipstick stain on the pillow, the warmth still lingering on their skin, faint scratches on Damon's back, would remain forever, reminders of the night they broke every rule. It was their first night of forbidden love. And the last night, they were naive enough to believe that loving each other could ever make everything all right. Dawn arrived painfully slow the next morning. When the first rays of sunlight crept through the curtains, Damon still lay motionless, holding Layla tightly in his arms. Neither of them slept, only pretended to close their eyes in hopes of holding on to the feeling from the night before, the feeling of belonging completely to each other, in the most secret, most forbidden, most sinful way. The air in the room still lingered with the scent of skin, the traces of their lovemaking etched on their bodies and across the wrinkled sheets. But outside, the world kept turning, the usual sounds returning to fill the day. Damon could hear Marcus's car pull up to the gate, the front door opening, Vanessa's voice calling for Layla from the kitchen. In that instant, reality crashed down around them, heavier than any storm that had passed the night before. Layla slipped out of bed first, quickly adjusting her nightgown, smoothing her hair, trying to rub away the faint red mark Damon had left on her neck. She looked at him in the mirror, her eyes full of worry but still laced with the contentment of someone who had, if only for a night, lived truly and honestly with her heart. Damon pulled her back to him and whispered, "Will you meet me out on the porch tonight?" Layla smiled, nodded gently, and vanished into the hallway, like a shadow that never lingered too long by his side. All day, Damon floated in a haze between waking and dreaming. Everything familiar seemed distant and strange. Every time he saw Layla moving through the house, he remembered the feel of her skin under his hands, her scent on his neck, the soft moans she made whenever he squeezed her a little tighter. Outwardly, though, they both had to play the roles of step-siblings, still chatting lightly in front of the adults, still keeping enough distance so that no one would suspect a thing. Only when no one was looking did Layla dare to brush her hand against Damon's beneath the table, or steal a lingering glance while Vanessa was telling a story. Each fleeting touch was like a jolt of electricity through Damon's body, enough to keep him restless, but also enough to keep them both perpetually on edge, living in fear. The worry of being discovered grew with every passing moment. One afternoon, Layla slipped into Damon's room, quietly closing the door and wrapping her arms tightly around him from behind. Her breath was ragged, her eyes shining with a mix of longing and fear. "Do you regret it?" Layla whispered, her lips trembling beside his ear. Damon stayed silent, only hugging her tighter, burying his face in her tangled hair. "I'm just afraid there won't be a tomorrow for us." Layla buried herself against his chest, her hands hungrily roaming his back, as if trying to hold onto Damon for herself one more time. That night, Damon sat out on the porch, waiting for Layla under the dim yellow light. She appeared, wrapped in a thin sweater, eyes lingering on him for a long moment before she sat down beside him. They didn't speak about the night before, only shared their breaths and the trembling of two hearts that no longer belonged to any family. Layla rested her head on Damon's shoulder, whispering, "I can't live without you, Damon." He ran his hand through her hair, pressing his cheek to her forehead, listening to the beat of his heart and hers, mingling together into a sad melody with no end. But that happiness could only exist in the dark. Back inside, Layla left a faint lipstick mark on Damon's shirt, a small trace, but enough for Vanessa to notice while collecting laundry. The next morning, his stepmother eyed Damon for a long time, suspicion flickering across her face as her gaze swept from his collar to Layla. No one said a word, but the silence was heavy, foreshadowing the storm that was coming. That night, Marcus happened to see Layla leaving Damon's room, hair tangled, eyes red, her whole manner unsettled. He didn't say a word, only closed the door quietly behind her, but both Damon and Layla knew that every secret would one day be dragged into the light. In the days that followed, the family was wrapped in an odd tension. Marcus grew quiet, Vanessa cold. Layla and Damon exchanged only distant glances, every accidental touch feeling like a final farewell. No one knew what choice to make, stay and pretend nothing ever happened, or walk away and live true to their hearts, no matter the cost. Late one night, Layla quietly packed her bags. She found Damon, hugged him tightly, her tears silently soaking his shoulder. "If I'm not here tomorrow, will you miss me?" Damon didn't answer, only pulled her closer, kissing her deeply, as if trying to keep every forbidden taste alive inside him. Layla whispered, "Maybe one day we'll regret this, but I can't go back to being your sister." When dawn rose, a taxi took Layla away from that house, leaving Damon standing silent on the steps, eyes red, clutching the note Layla had slipped into his pocket the night before, a single line. "No matter what, I was yours, forever." Every trace of their forbidden love remained only in the familiar scent on the pillow, the faded lipstick on his collar, the faint scratches on Damon's back that would never heal. But Damon knew, whatever happened in the world outside, the night they broke every boundary would always be the truest, most vivid moment of his life. Their story ended with secrets buried between four walls, only the wind whispering across the porch to remind Damon that sometimes forbidden love needs no witness but the two who lived it. So long as they had loved and lived with everything they had for just one night, defying the whole world.